Hi guys, Black Wolf here again, and I am reading chapter 53. I was in no hurry. All that mattered was the order in which I completed this plan. I stood on the dais at the head of the room, the platform reserved for royalty or the courtiers required near them in this formal meeting. Behind me were the thrones of King and Queen and Darius. Jaren's throne was no longer here. I wondered how long I'd been gone before it was carried away. The room was filled with a few hundred people, none of them whom I recognized. Well, they clearly recognized me. I had come through a door connecting directly from the private rooms of the royal family. There was no announcement of my arrival, but apparently it hadn't been necessary. Their wide eyes in total silence while staring at me confirmed that. I saw Kerwin come through the door from the throne room, where he and the other regents had been meeting. Him I recognized. He had hardly changed over the past 4 years, still a powerful presence and someone I'd always respected. From his expression, it was obvious he knew who I was supposed to be, but he seemed to be fighting his own eyes. "Who are you?" Kerwin asked, cautious as always. The first order of business was to withdraw my sword. The real sword belonged to Prince Jaren. Before leaving the castle 4 years ago, I had hidden it beneath a loose floorboard in my old room, accessible only by crawling under the bed. My room had remained exactly as it was the night I left. My sword was still there as well, and other than a thin blanket of dust, it looked exactly as it had before. I balanced the sword horizontally on both hands and knelt before Kerwin as he approached me. "You know me, Lord Kerwin. I am the boy who burned the throne room, the boy who challenged the king of Menden Mold to a duel. I'm the younger prince of Carthia. I am Jaren." A whisper passed through the room. Kerwin seemed unimpressed, but he was still listening. I stayed, but pointed to the nick of the blade of the sword. "After I lost the duel with the king, I threw the sword in anger, and it hit a sharp corner of the castle wall. You later returned it to me privately and said that if I don't respect my sword, no one will respect me. Then you apologized because you had also heard what the king said about my mother, but you hadn't dared to challenge him." Kerwin faltered a moment, then recovered. Someone could have overheard that." "Perhaps so, but it was you spoke to that day." Without taking my eyes off his, I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small golden rock. It was the last gift my father had ever given to me. Inside the satchel at the church, since I stole it back from Connor, it had never been hidden especially well. Anyone who wished to venture high onto the ledges of Farthenwood would have found it. Later I moved the rock to the bank of the stream on the outskirts of Connor's estate, where it hid its careful place among a thousand other ordinary rocks. "This is for you." I pressed the stone into Kerwin's hand. Kerwin turned it over in his hand, unimpressed. "Imitators gold? It's worthless." "No, it's real gold." "I am real, Lord Kerwin." Tears filled Kerwin's eyes. He pulled a creased and worn paper from his pocket and unfolded it. His hands shook increasingly as he read it. Then he turned to the audience and said, "This note was given to me by King Egbert about a month after Prince Jaren's ship was attacked 4 years ago. I was instructed to keep it with me at all times, and to read it only if someone ever came forward claiming to be prince. This is what it says." He read aloud. "Many may one day claim to be the lost prince of Carthia. They will be well rehearsed, and some may even look the part. You will know Prince Jaren by one sign alone. He will give you the humblest of rocks and tell you it's gold." I know. Hold on. Never mind. Go. "And tell you it was gold." Kerwin folded the paper again, and then said to the audience, "Lords and ladies of Carthia, I present to you the son of King Egbert and Queen Erin. He is the lost royal of Carthia, who lives and stands before you. Hail, Prince Jaren." Then he turned to me and fell to his knees. He took my hand in his and pressed the note into my palm, then kissed the back of my hand. In turn, everyone in the room sank to their knees and said, "Hail, Prince Jaren." Kerwin looked up at me, and a single tear fell onto his cheek. "Your pants are filthy," as if he rolled in the dirt before coming here. I would expect nothing less from the boy I remember. I smiled. "I've come home. Do you know me now?" In a crowd of 1,000 boys claiming to be the prince, there would be only one with the same look of trouble in his eye. I promise never to forget you again. Suddenly, as well as I thought I had everything planned out, I was at a loss. Should I tell them to rise or issue a command? They're all watching me, waiting for what I do next. There was only one person in the room who had failed to kneel. Devin Connor. who stood at the back of the room, frozen. I walked into the crowd, which stood and magically parted before me. Connor found his words and spoke them slowly. "It cannot be. You... I suspected it once or twice, but... was I blind?" "You saw who you wanted to see, Connor. Nothing more." "He sees nothing but a fraud, and so do I," Veldergraff said from behind me. "This is clearly an impostor." I turned and smiled at him. "You are relieved of your duties as Prime Regent, Lord Veldergraff." Then to Connor I said, "See how I keep my promises? For now you are my new Prime Regent." Connor didn't return the smile. He was still more frozen than not. "You cannot do this," Veldergraff sneered. "Who are you, really?" I heard Connor comb through the orphanages of Carthia. No doubt he found you there amongst the other fleas and vermin. He did. I lived in several orphanages at various times, and went by the name Sage. Trace my records back as far as you can. You'll find the first entry about 4 years ago, shortly after Jaren disappeared. Veldergraff laughed at that. "So you admit to being one of them, and I expect me to bow before you?" I grinned. "You're right. That is funny." Then I laughed with him, laughed so hard that I put my hand on his shoulder to better show the joke. He didn't appreciate that, and slid my hand away, like brushing an earwig off his clothes. With my other hand, I lifted a coin from his vest and rolled it away on my fingertips. His laughter ceased, and another chorus of whispers echoed through the room. "You know me, don't you, Lord Veldergraff?" He rubbed his silver ring as the signs of anxiety washed over his face. I nodded at his ring. "I stole that from you once." "Right off your finger. You remember that?" "I'm sure. It was hours before you noticed. You told my mother I was incorrigible." "Apparently little has changed," Veldergraff muttered. More loudly, I said, "Do I have guards in here? Escort Lord Veldergraff out of this castle." I flipped his coin back at him. "Come up with any questions you may have to verify my identity. We'll meet again soon. And I promise that I will satisfy you." Two guards appeared on either side of Veldergraff. One took his arm and began to pull him away, but he shrugged them off and said, "No, Your Highness, now that I see you close, there will be no questions." Then, like a scolded dog, he walked out ahead of the two guards. "I have questions," a voice said behind me. This voice I also heard before. It was the one person I least wanted to see through, though it was most inevitable. The betrothed Princess Amarinda stood in the center of the aisle. I had created by walking there. Her hair was much fancier than the last time we went, piled high on her head and full of curls and ribbons, and a ribbon. She wore a square-necked, cream-colored dress Lost my spot! Intricately patterned in gold tones and trimmed to match the ribbon in her hair. She would have already heard the bells tolling for the deaths of the royal family. I could only imagine the pain she must have endured this evening, wondering who had been chosen as the new ruler of Carthia and what he would do about her. No matter what her anticipations might have been for tonight, one thing was certain: she did not expect me. I walked over and gave her a polite bow. "Princess, it's good to see you again." The hard expression on her face made it clear that she did not feel the same way. Aware of many eyes on us, I moved closer to her and said, "Can we talk?" Whispered, "Can we talk?" Her tone was icy. "Talk with whom? A brazen servant, a ragged orphan, or a prince?" "With me." "Here in public?" I hesitated, and she added, "We'll make a scene if we're only talking. Dance with me." I started to protest, but she was right. A dance might be the best shield for the conversation we had to have. So I nodded at the musicians in the corner to begin a song. With a little attempt at concealing her disgust, she took my hand and moved with me to begin the steps. "The cut on your cheek is still there, though much improved from what it was before," she finally said. "It was never intended that you noticed me that night," I explained. "Then you should have not spoken to me the way you did." "I sometimes lack the talent of knowing when to speak and when to keep quiet." "That's not true," she snapped. Then she took a deep breath and fell back into the rhythm with the dance. "You have every opportunity to be honest with me about the one thing that mattered most. It was no lack of talent. You designed it that way. I never lied to you that night, not once. Even after I begged you for it, you failed to tell me the truth. Only the devils know the difference between that and a lie. You have hurt and insulted me." I had no answer to that, and only said, "You will never find me dishonest with you again, Princess." "I hope not. Neither neither to spare your feelings nor mine. How shall I address you now? You're no longer sage. The dance step called for me to lean to my right. As she noticed me wince from the ache in my ribs, she didn't acknowledge it. When I stood straight, I could speak again. Call me Jaren. You dance like a real Jaren, better than your brother did. Don't compare me to him. She stiffened. It was my attempt at a compliment. Darius and I are very different people if you think of him. When you think of me, I'll always be a failure to you. Okay, guys, I don't have a lot of this chapter left. I have like freaking 5-6 paragraphs, but this video is gonna end up get cut short, so I don't want to read this again. So, it's gonna be The False Prince, chapter 53. The end. That's gonna be the next one. Bye.